Hello, I'm Danny Cook, and welcome back to another episode of Halftime Cuppa's Halftime Podcast. Today, I'm joined by yet again two fantastic panelists in the form of Charlie Pumfrey and Jake Pooley. Or Jack.
Whoa.
Rewind.
Hold on. Get the VAR. Mistake.
What a good introduction that was. Whoa.
Here we go. We'll try again. Jack Pooley. There we go. I don't know where Jake come from. I've clearly got Jake on my mind, Charlie.
I don't want to do this anymore, to be honest.
I don't blame you, really, Jake.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's not happening.
Well, I mean, we're off to a great start, so I'm sure it's going to be an entertaining show anyway. We're going to share our views on whether VAR has been successful so far at the World Cup. So that's going to be today's topic of debate. Don't forget that you can cast your view and you can vote in our poll in the post below, and of course put in your comments in the comment section below as well. So, chaps, how are you both?
I'm fantastic, Danny.
Good.
Intro, but it's all right.
That's all right. Apologies.
All right.
Have you guys been enjoying the World Cup?
Definitely. It's been good, isn't it? It's been pretty good. Entertaining stuff, I'd say.
Yeah, entertaining is definitely the word.
And it's coming home as well, so...
Oh, exactly. Although, to be fair, by the time this comes out, we could look very silly.
Oh, no, actually. All right, when's this going out?
This should hopefully come out this Saturday. So let's hope by this point England are through. But
yeah, we'll be all right.
It's fine, Danny. It's fine. Football's coming home.
Yeah, it is coming home.
Anyway, yeah. So you're saying entertaining so far. Has VAR played a part in it?
I'll jump in. I'll jump in, Jack. It's certainly had a part to play, hasn't it? It's not been without controversy, though, has it? It's not been. I feel like people have been more wound up by the fact it's there than by it getting decisions wrong. I think it's the main sort of takeaway from it, that maybe it takes a little bit too long and maybe it's not entirely clear where and when it's being used. But it does seem like it has had an influence on the games, and it has. I mean, they've showed stats in the FIFA last week, I think it was, after the group stage. They said it's a 4% increase in how accurate decisions have been now. So, yeah. I mean, that's positive.
99.3% apparently. No.
That was it, that number. I couldn't remember the exact number.
Yeah, don't worry. Research.
I love it. Cheers, Jake.
Oh, for God's sake.
Okay, so Jack, how would you sum up VAR at the World Cup so far, if you had to sum it up?
I'd say it's been a mixed bag. As your point you're saying about entertaining, obviously penalties, they are quite entertaining to watch, and there has been a lot of them this World Cup. So I did my research obviously this morning, and there's been 27 so far in this World Cup, which is a lot compared to the record before was 18, and we're not even at like quarterfinals yet, so there's still a lot to go. So obviously that does make it more entertaining, seeing a lot of penalties happening, seeing a lot of things being overturned. I think there's been a lot of decisions where it has been good, used well, but then there's been times where you think it's a bit obvious they've missed that one, or there's been times where just not being an obvious decision and they still changed it. So there's a way to go, but I think it's been good overall. Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know if you guys remember that Portugal game. I believe it's Portugal anyway in the group stage, when it was all kicking off the VAR. So I suppose my next question would be: do you think that VAR has been used effectively and correctly? I guess because certainly in that game it seemed as though it wasn't.
Yeah, can you go for it? Yeah. Yeah, I'd say I wrote an actual piece on that game as well, because it was so controversial that there's so much to talk about. As you can find on the Halftime Cover website.
Good man.
And there was times in that game where it just seemed a bit of a mockery of VAR. I mean, there's a time where Ronaldo was judged to possibly hit someone as he was running to get the ball. I don't think it was a red card, but the ref took about 5 minutes to actually make a decision. In the end, he just gave a yellow card, so it was a bit of a non-decision, really, which led to the Iran manager after the game basically saying that it's in the rules. If it's Ronaldo or Messi, it shouldn't change that, which is something that you could say. And obviously, there's that handball decision against Cedric where the ball is clearly just headed onto his arm. It was no way he'd get his hand out of the way, but they still gave us a penalty. So it's still a bit. It should be used when it's clear and obvious, but obviously that wasn't really a clear and obvious decision, but they still changed it. So that was definitely a game that highlighted the weakness of it. So.
Charlie, would you agree?
I think there's an element of the case that there have been certain places where it's been not misused, but I don't know. It's a difficult one that we're at the beginnings now of a system that has the opportunity to really clear up the game. But I think it will take a lot of tinkering. Whether it means, I was watching an MLS game while I was taking a brief holiday during the World Cup, and they had VAR, but there was a decision which they made no indication it was being VAR. There was no idea what was going on in the stadium. I think that's another area where they have to really, really work on it.
So just talk us through that then. So what game did you see, and what was the decision?
So I was at Orlando versus Montreal. Not the greatest game. Now looking at tables, like a mid-table clash. Montreal 1-0 up. Then in the 85th minute-ish, they score from a set piece, but the linesman flags them offside, it's like, okay, he's offside, fine, move on. Orlando go to move the ball and attack, and it gets released to their striker, but the referee blows the whistle and gives the penalty. Gives the goal, even though there was no indication that they were even checking it. So I think there's just a lack of clarity. Something I've heard from people that have been at games that have had VAR, that there's no real indication that it's being used. There's no real obvious knowledge. Whereas other sports seem to have got that right, with like eagle eye, I believe it is in cricket and in rugby, they'll show that it's being passed or it's being reviewed in the stadium with just a little graphic on a screen. But I just don't think football's quite got that far yet.
I think in the World Cup they have used that a little bit, haven't they? On the screens.
Have they? I haven't. I don't see why.
When it's using the FA Cup and stuff last season, I don't think it was very well communicated. But I think this World Cup they have done a little bit better with that. It's a difficult one, yeah. Well,
that's good then. If they're showing that they can adapt it even just for something like that, it proves that they are looking actively at how they can fix it.
I guess the difference with football and other sports is that like they can't really show the decision because it could make a lot of people pretty mad in the stadium. Obviously, if people get passionate about it, so I'm guessing that's a difference somewhere.
Okay, so let's look at some of the benefits of VAR being introduced. So, what do you guys think has been the real benefit of this technology being used at the World Cup?
I'll go first. Yeah, benefits. I'd definitely say there's been a lot of times where there has been a clear and obvious decision that was missed by the referee, and it has been overturned to be the right decision. So there's things that obviously in the fast pace of the game, it's very hard to be a referee, I guess, and to see those decisions would be very hard. So when you have a little help from people watching it with all the different angles and everything, then it obviously makes their job a little bit easier. But I'd say they've had a lot of pressure. Sometimes you feel like the refs, even though they're on the pitch, they're not actually in control, because if they get told in their ear to have a look at it, it's basically being told, you need to change your mind, mate. So, and I think times where obviously it didn't work from an England perspective in that Tunisia game when Harry Kane was getting rugby tackled, it didn't really work there. But then in the Panama game, obviously we did actually get a penalty because of that, which would be missed before. So, there's been times where it has worked pretty well for us, I'd say.
Charlie, would you agree with that?
I'd agree. I think, like I say, it's a fluid system at the moment. There's no real. I think it's evolving, which I think is a good thing. And actually, I don't think it's actually led to any wrong decisions as of yet. There's been nothing that's been clearly wrong in the case that it used to be that way, that a team would.
Not even the Iran penalty?
Yeah, Cedric arm.
Yeah, I mean, maybe with that one. I think I only really caught one highlight of that one, so I might be wrong with that. But I think to have one decision in the whole tournament that we're thinking might have been iffy is better than, I think, in previous tournaments where we've had. I mean, if you go back to 2014, 2010, where there were I'm sure if you went back, you could pinpoint many decisions in quite a few games.
Lampard.
I mean, that's gone on technology, but still, technology wasn't used. Whereas now we've got to a situation where if that would happen again, he would have been given the goal. So I think actually a lot of people are complaining and saying, "Oh, it's killing the game and it's bringing in too many stoppages and that it goes against what football's about." I just think if you can do it, you have a responsibility to do it.
Do you feel it
As
adds
FIFA.
more drama, Charlie?
I think an element of that. I know with South Korea's goal against Germany, where they celebrated and then it was stopped, and then they went and celebrated again. I think maybe that might slow it down in that situation. But I'd rather have that. I think the drama of having more goals and penalties given or taken away that should or shouldn't have been given. I think that can only be a positive thing. That can only lead to more genuine drama than just a referee giving a wrong decision in a final, which could kill one team or the other. I think I'd much rather have a system that maybe takes 30 seconds but gets it right.
Okay. And Jack, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like Charlie's saying, like it's very important that a team doesn't go out of such a massive competition just due to a decision. Like it's a lot better if they. I'm sure every country would agree that they prefer it to take 30 seconds, like Charlie was saying, if they get the decision spot on. Which is obviously, I think you should never go out the World Cup because of a decision, which has happened before, in certain circumstances, like the Lampard thing. I mean, we lost anyway, but still was a bit of a controversial one where we could have been 2 at half time. But that's obviously the past, doesn't matter anymore. But I'd say overall that what needs to be done is needs to be a bit more education on it all, because there seems to be a bit of a misunderstanding from the players and the managers and as well as the fans sometimes, where you see them like jump into the referee and doing the VAR sign and all that every time he does a decision against them, when in reality, obviously, VAR is always being used, but it's just not always being visible because there's always people checking every decision. It's just that the wrong ones get flagged up. So I think there needs to be progress made on education and all that towards it. But yeah, definitely.
Okay. So aside from the education side of it, Jack, if you were FIFA and you were planning, I mean, I would imagine they're going to use it for the next World Cup anyway, but if you were sort of planning how VAR is going to be used for the next World Cup, what improvements, what slight little changes would you like to see?
I'd say definitely needs to be looking more at, I know they have fine-tuned it since the Harry Kane incident in Tunisia game, but there needs to be a lot more things looking at stuff off the ball. Sometimes they don't seem to see, even though we see it on TV, we see all the replays, still don't seem to be picked up on as well as it maybe should be. And then you've maybe just cutting the time down a little bit. I mean, if you had more, I'm not sure how you do that really, but there's a lot of times where the referee's looking at replays for minutes and time's ticking on. It's like you've seen it a million times, mate. Like, make your mind up, really. But I'd say just a bit more decisiveness, a bit more clarity, and yeah, it's getting there, close.
Anything else that you would add, Charlie?
I'd echo a lot of what Jax just said. Looking at maybe refining that time down, make sure the referees can give a decision. But I do think they do have. Like you say, you'd rather them take a minute or two just to get that decision right. We have added time, and I think timekeeping is something that, Danny, if you went to one of the guest speakers at UCFB, you'd know that David Dean was quite keen on the idea of taking the idea of timekeeping away from the referee and giving it to another official. I think maybe that's something that could be looked into and taking a little bit more of the guesswork out of that. I think that's something that really should be investigated, but it is a case of getting what they've got here right now, get that right, and then move on and try and maybe expand it to other areas where the game isn't quite as efficient as it should be.
Yeah, the time one was quite interesting, actually. I'm not too sure if I fully agree with that. Otherwise, you'd be having games for 3 hours and all sorts.
So what are the reasons for that? Do you mean taking time when it goes off the pitch, or?
Yeah, so go on, Charlie. Do you want
sorry. That's okay. You go ahead, Danny. You go ahead.
Well, true gent. So I think what he was trying to imply was like, when you watch matches now, there's like 90-minute games, obviously, but 60 minutes of it is actual game, and like half an hour is the ball off the pitch being prepared to throw in or prepared for the free kick. So I get that. I think I just feel that it will make the games very, very long.
Yeah, I'd say that's just part of the game, really, isn't it? Just
Yeah, I feel like just add the time on in extra time. Just add like maybe be a bit more favourable and understand that maybe there's 90-minute game, there's 60 minutes of actual match time, but like add a little bit more if you want to add a little bit more. But I feel we'll be there till like midnight, still playing matches.
Yeah, that's a weird one, isn't it? Yeah.
Charlie, any gut thoughts on that?
I can understand where you're coming from. I can understand that what you're saying there is that obviously we don't want games to be going on way too long. It's not cricket. We're not here for 5-day test matches. But I think there is an element of that needs to be thought about. I don't know how much of an influence it has for maybe having a minute more than you should do. I mean, there's famous examples of Michael Owen's goal against Manchester City in the derby, famously being in Fergie time. But I think it is something that if it can be improved, it should be improved. Like anything else, if you're going to bring VAR in, if you're going to bring goal line technology in, you really do need to look at all the aspects of the game and really commit to making sure that the game is as good as it can be, and that ultimately the people that go to these, if you're paying to go and watch these games and you're losing 30 minutes of that match, why a ticket's not a third cheaper?
It's a valid point.
If you're talking about value, anyway, aren't they? That's a whole another thing.
Yeah, exactly. If you're talking about value for money, that's really what you've got. That's another aspect that has to be protected.
They charge way too much anyway, but that's another thing, I guess.
Yeah, certainly a valid point. I think that's a debate we will definitely have to have another time because unfortunately we're pretty much running out of time. So my final question to you both, we'll start off with Jack. Overall, do you think that VAR will be used more in English football as a result of the World Cup? And would you like to see it being used more in English football?
That's a very difficult question, to be fair, Danny.
That's all right. Take your time.
Well, I think obviously Premier League have announced it's not going to be used in the upcoming season for a reason, because there's still a lot of fine tuning to go with it. Yeah. I think if you did make the improvements that obviously FIFA maybe should listen to this podcast and listen to what we're saying. If you made some of those improvements that we've been saying to refine it and to make sure that they get every decision right, rather than, to be fair, they have done it pretty well, but there's been still a couple that have been pretty embarrassing in a way. If they did that, then yeah, maybe it could be used. I think the difficult thing is with the Premier League, it's so fast paced and fans don't want to stand around for 5 minutes whilst they're waiting to know where to celebrate a goal. I think that's a bit different. And also I feel like the fans that are paying to go watch a game of football get a worse experience because they can't actually watch the replays that we see on TV, which is a bit unfair. So I don't know, there's a lot of ways, but then you can't really show it in the stadium because people just kick off. There's a lot of ways that it needs to be improved still, but I think possibly in the season after next, then if they got it all right, it would cut out a lot of dodgy decisions, really. And yeah, it could be good.
Okay, and Charlie, final thoughts?
I agree with some of what Jack said there. I think actually that the Premier League and English football needs to be careful it doesn't make a pariah of itself from everyone else. If every other league in Europe says, yes, we're committed to doing this, then we need to be... I'd rather be on the inside making the system better than adopting something in 5 years' time that we don't totally agree with, or in 2 years' time, or in 3 years' time that we don't totally agree with. I'd rather be on the inside making a system that we're happy with than taking something we're not necessarily happy with in a few years' time. I think it definitely has. It's something that should be looked into, ultimately. The Premier League has, like I said earlier, has a responsibility. The FA has a responsibility to fans and clubs to make sure the game's as fair as it can be. And I think not having a system that is shown to have made a game fairer doesn't look great for anyone.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Okay, well, the full-time whistle has blown, the imaginary full-time whistle. Unfortunately, we've lost the sound today for some reason. But let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to vote in the poll too. So before we wrap up, be sure to check out our various pieces of content we have scattered across our sites, as well as our football predictor at halftimecuppa.com. Of course, Jack's done a few pieces regarding VAR. Well, he's done a piece on VAR. So go and have a look at that, especially after what happened in the World Cup, the Portugal-Iran game. Anyway, let's give today's panelists, Charlie Pumfrey and Jack Pooley, there we go, a shout out. How can we follow you guys on social media?
So my Twitter's at Pooley Jack. So Jack, not Jake. All in lowercase. Yeah, follow me on that.
Thank you, Jack. Charlie.
You can find me at Charlie Pumfrey on Twitter. Nice and easy.
Cool. And mine is at DannyCook1996 on Twitter too. Okay. So thank you again, boys, for coming on. I appreciate that. And appreciate you giving up your time and your fantastic views and insights on VAR. Thank you.
My pleasure, Danny.
Cheers.
I've been your host, Danny, and you've been listening to another episode of the Halftime Podcast.